They come at the crack of dawn, emerging from 1,000 Soviet nights and from 1,000 years of bondage.
Pharaoh, I say, let my people go. To you, Pharaoh, I say, let my people go.
Their ethnic backgrounds span the huge land mass of the Soviet Union, from Georgia, the Ukraine, the Caucasus, the Urals, from Uzbekistan, Kurdistan, Bukhara, Belarusia, from Samarkand, Odessa, Minsk, Moscow, Kiev, and 1,000 remote and all but nameless villages and towns. They come from different places, but they are one Jewish people. Now, in our time, they have made their Jewishness heard and felt. For these Jews, the vision of freedom is clearer each moment. For these Jews, Israel is nearer with each clicking kilometer. For these people, whose Jewishness an avalanche of 10 centuries of oppression could not bury, the Iron Curtain has split, as the Red Sea once parted for their ancestors. Behind them, 1,000 years of oppression. Legend makes them descendants of the 10 lost tribes. History puts Jews on the Black Sea and in the Caucasus during the Greek Empire. Fleeing Byzantine persecution, Jews entered Russia in the 6th and 7th centuries of the Common Era. The ancestors of modern Soviet Jewry settled in the land of the Khazars. The nightmare of Russian Jewish history began with Vladimir, Prince of Kiev. Attacks on Jews there start a venomous tradition of religious persecution that never let up. In the 16th century, Ivan the Terrible's choice for the Jews is convert or die. Jews are barred from the Principality of Moscow. Mother Russia is forbidden to them. Yet in spite of the prohibition, Jews trickle in. Jews accused of tempting Christians from their faith are burned at the stake. These Soviet Jews are on the way to Israel at last. These Russian Jews are leaving the nightmare of oppression behind them. These Jews are on their way out of bondage.
The desire to go to Israel I have for a long time.
Уехать в государство Израиль — это мечта моей сознательной жизни.
I would like to be proud that I am a Jew, and I think it will be possible only in Israel. I would like to be a Jew and not in Russia. Anti-Semitism in Russia was, is, and will be.
I go because I have a son, and I want him to live in this country and to work for this country. My husband was repressed 15 years of prison, and she died in jail.
In the 17th century, Khmelnytsky, the butcher of the Ukraine, organizes the first of the dread pogroms. Muscovite armies join in. Blood libel accusations are common. By the late 18th century, 1 million Jews live under the Russian yoke in the Pale of Settlement. Terrible social and economic conditions prevail in Russia. A ruthless aristocracy crushes millions of impoverished serfs. These feudal barons use the Jews as middlemen between themselves and their peasant slaves. Jews are often hired by landowners to lease inns, flour mills, whole villages. The hatred of the serfs for the despots is skillfully transferred to the Jews. In the 19th century, the Jews in the Pale of Settlement live in Shtetlach, small towns. Though poor and penned in, despised by their neighbors, Shtetl Jews build a kingdom of the spirit unequaled in history. Their communities are strong and tightly knit. They protect the welfare of all.
De kleine, als je verloren, oi best, mijn stetele best, mijn hemele dag, je gaf, mijn kinderen,
Young children attend Cheder, the one-room school. Other youths go to yeshivot, academies of learning. Pressures on Jews to Christianize are intensified. For Shtetl Jews, the Sabbath is life's crown jewel, a well whose waters give comfort and courage. Books are a constant source of strength. The holy books, a part of the daily life of every Jew. Later, the secular books of the Haskalah, the Enlightenment. The spiritual achievements of Russian Jewry are enormous. Hundreds of Yiddish and Hebrew newspapers flourish. The Yiddish theater flowers. Literary giants like Mapu, Wachad Ha'am, Mendele Mocher Sforim, Gordon, and Sholem Aleichem express a powerful Jewish ethos. But a tightening noose menaces the Jews. Payas, earlocks, and the traditional dress are forbidden. Jewish children are kidnapped for army service up to 25 years. Taxes are levied one after the other. Areas of settlement shrink. The Jews of Russia react with strength and joy in their peoplehood, but they are sorely pressed. Life in Russia is unbearable. Famine, sickness, death are the daily lot of millions. The chief of the Holy Russian Synod decrees 1/3 of the Jews will convert. 1/3 will leave, 1/3 will die. In the 40 years before the Bolshevik Revolution, 2 of Russia's 5 million Jews go to the United States. Most of them settle in New York's Lower East Side, most of America's Jews can trace their roots directly to this poor but vibrant cauldron of life. Others, from the 1880s on, go to Palestine. Some, even from remote regions, make their way on foot. Theodor Herzl, a westernized Jew, is horrified by the misery of Russian Jewry. He decides his dream of a Jewish state reborn must become reality. During this period, the American Joint Distribution Committee, in which the United Jewish Appeal has its roots, is born. Thousands of Russian Jews settle in their old new land, including David Ben-Gurion, Moshe Sharet, Levi Eshkol, and many other of Israel's founding fathers.
Шалом, дорогие друзья, брухим хабаим, добро пожаловать. От имени израильского правительства.
These Soviet Jews, now on their way to Israel, are a direct continuation of that wave of settlement.
По дороге на нашу родину, государство Израиль. משנה מקום, משנה מזל לטובה. אמן.
World War I. Russia's Jews are caught in the crossfire. Though 500,000 of them fight for Russia, Jews are blamed for the country's stinging defeats. Tsarism's death rattle means fresh agony for Russia's Jews, while the Bolshevik Revolution promises a new era for all. But for the Jews, it is an old story. The Civil War brings massacre. A 1,000 pogroms. In the Ukraine alone, 60,000 Jews are killed. Stalin's Russia, following the dictates of Lenin, sees religion as the opium of the people. The noose on Jewish life tightens. Religious training is prohibited. Yeshivot and chadarim are closed. Hebrew is banned. Synagogues become factories, clubs, warehouses. Thousands of Jews are deported to labor camps. The attempt to set up a synthetic Jewish state in Birobidzhan failed. By 1930, Jewish national life in Russia is all but done for. Some economic help, especially from American Jews, reaches Jewish agricultural settlements. World War II. Hitler's armies flash into Russia. Jews are stopped from crossing the pre-39 Soviet borders. Many fall into German hands. A Soviet Jew, one of the group on its way to Israel, visits the concentration camp he was in during the war. Millions of Jews trapped in Russia were murdered outright or shipped to the crematoria. Local Russian populaces need no prodding to help round up Jews for Nazi extermination. In ghettos throughout German-occupied Russia, the Jews hold out desperately, caring for each other as best they can. Near Kiev, in the ravine of Babi Yar, 30,000 Jews are slaughtered in 2 days. The Soviet government's monument makes no mention of them. For the first time in their lives, this group of Soviet Jews en route to Israel can sing Hatikva openly. The birth of Israel runs like an electric shock through Russia's Jews. Israel is real. Though they can't reach it, it is there for them. The gears of Soviet repression grind relentlessly. Churches are rebuilt, but not synagogues. The word Yevrei, Jew, is stamped on ID cards. The trial of Jewish doctors, the disappearance of Jewish writers and intellectuals, midnight arrests, purges, terror. In the past, a spectacular Hebrew and Yiddish culture. Today, one single state-run Yiddish propaganda sheet. In the past, a luminous religious life. Today, less than 10 synagogues for 3 million Jews, or 1 for every 250,000. The Soviets have a stranglehold on Jewish life. Zionism becomes the new mark for an old hatred. Elie Wiesel called them the Jews of silence. But then, the miracle. The Six-Day War galvanized Soviet Jews. Realizing their future was cultural and spiritual genocide, Russian Jews demand openly to emigrate to Israel. In 1970, after more than 50 years of immobility, Jews begin to trickle out of the USSR. In 1971, the trickle becomes a stream. 100,000 apply for exit visas. 10,000 leave. Others lose their jobs. Their children are harassed. Some are hounded, arrested, jailed. Yet nothing stops them. They continue protesting. They study Hebrew secretly. They raise money for huge exit taxes. They go on hunger strikes. The stream becomes a torrent. In 1972, more than 30,000 get out. In 1973, the flow increases still more. This is the most heroic exodus of modern times. The shackles have at last been shaken off by scores of thousands. But for every Jew who makes it to Israel, there are thousands upon thousands still waiting for their chance to be free. These are Jews for whom defiance of tyranny is a way of life. They dare to say, no matter what you do, we will live in Israel as Jews. in October, during the Yom Kippur War, more Russian Jews arrived in Israel than in any single month since the emigration began. Many volunteered to work at factories, hospitals, schools, and kibbutzim. This is a moment that trembles in the great continuum of Jewish history, an opportunity to save a vast and vital Jewish community from oblivion. A challenge given to our generation.